This is the day that Bitcoin conquered the world.
I think it's clear to say that Bitcoin has achieved escape velocity, that it'll become the world global standard. The ultimate trick is that the US will start printing money to buy Bitcoin. And of course, that will be the day that Bitcoin could jump $100,000 in a day.
Bitcoin continues its monstrous week, reaching escape velocity and looking to make its first run at $100,000 per coin, perhaps even today. If the global Bitcoin arms race has truly begun, all your models are destroyed, and Bitcoin goes to the moon. And just when you thought you were getting tired of winning, Bitcoin pulls you right back in. The fireworks aren't done yet, as Bitcoin surpassed $93,000 per coin this morning and is looking to make its first run at 100K sooner rather than later. Is today the day? Flipping silver was just the beginning, as it's now become the 7th largest asset in the world, flipping international oil giant Saudi Aramco and Vanguard's total stock market ETF. And you better believe it's coming for tech monopoly giant Google next. If you aren't paying attention to this thing yet, you most definitely should be. With rumors of multiple nation-states front-running the potential for a US National Strategic Reserve under a Trump presidency, Bitcoin spot ETF inflows have gone absolutely parabolic this week. Senior ETF analyst at Bloomberg, Eric Balchunas, posted this today. Juggernaut. IBIT has hit the $40 billion asset mark, a mere 2 weeks after hitting $30 billion. In a record 211 days, annihilating the previous record of 1,253 days held by IEMG. It's now in the top 1% of all ETFs by assets, and at 10 months old, it is bigger than all 2,800 ETFs launched in the past 10 years. The game theory is playing out at warp speed now, and Bitcoin OGs like Max Kaiser are now looking like legitimate prophets, as they have been saying this would happen for over 14 years. Max was on InfoWars with Alex Jones yesterday talking about Bitcoin, and I think he articulates the profound nature of what is happening with the asset on a global economic scale, and how at this point, flipping gold and reaching $800,000 per coin is all but guaranteed.
A few years ago, up until a few years ago, a lot of people would come out and say, what if governments try to ban Bitcoin? And I've been on your show many times explaining that we won't see governments trying to ban Bitcoin. What we'll see is governments competing to buy the most Bitcoin. And that's what I call the global hash war. And I really started talking about this quite heavily in 2019. So many years ago, that essentially it's impossible to ban Bitcoin, that no government can do so. It's unconfiscatable, it's impregnable, it's uncensorable. So the only thing left for them to do is succumb to game theory. And now countries are starting to outdo themselves in buying bigger and bigger quantities of Bitcoin. Now, when President Bukele here in El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender a few years ago, Max and Stacy decided that we had to come here and live here and be a part of this revolution. So we kicked it off. We kicked off the global hash war in El Salvador. And as you pointed out, El Salvador has something like $500 million worth of Bitcoin. We buy Bitcoin every single day. The Bitcoin office, which reports directly to the president, is run by Stacy. And they make sure that they buy one Bitcoin every single day. And we keep out all of the altcoins and the garbage coins and the meme coins. That's part of the job that the Bitcoin office does. So let's get to Donald Trump. Donald Trump says, well, he wants to enter the global hash war as well. He understands that the dollar and all fiat money is going to go to its intrinsic value of zero. As all fiat money all throughout history, they all go to zero without exception. And they're all going to zero against Bitcoin, and everything goes to zero against Bitcoin, including gold. You see gold being demonetized versus Bitcoin. You see the gold ETFs are losing their value and attraction, and all that money is going into the Bitcoin ETF. So you see the demonetization of gold happening in real time. So Donald Trump and Cynthia Lummis, who put a bill forward in Congress and in the Senate trying to start a campaign and a law that would mandate that the U.S. put Bitcoin on the books as legal reserves, and he's targeted 1 million Bitcoin that he'd like to buy. And that's fantastic, except Bitcoin is the only commodity in history, the only asset in history that no matter how high the demand is, the supply never increases. The supply of Bitcoin will never increase no matter what the demand is. Even if all $400 trillion worth of monetizable assets on planet Earth go into Bitcoin, you cannot create more supply of Bitcoin. It's an absolutely scarce commodity. That means that the price can only go up. Then you have Michael Saylor at MicroStrategy just announced another $42 billion buy program of Bitcoin. He said it can go to $200 to $400 billion buy program of Bitcoin. As I mentioned, in the Middle East, you've got Qatar, you've got UAE, both rumored to shortly announce that they're going to put state reserves reserves into Bitcoin. That would be another $500 billion worth of buy into Bitcoin. You've got all the supply issues that were around because of the Mt. Gox distribution. Germany sold their Bitcoin. They're quite stupid in that regard. They already lost billions of dollars selling Bitcoin, but that supply was a bit of a headwind. But now there is no supply. There's no supply in the exchanges. There's only demand. Trump, will he be successful in buying 1 million Bitcoin? Well, it won't be at prices that you see today, around $80,000 per Bitcoin. He'll be buying Bitcoin at $100,000, $200,000, $500,000, $600,000 a Bitcoin. Alex, Bitcoin just took out silver in terms of its market capitalization. Silver was valued at roughly $1.7 trillion. Bitcoin is now worth more than silver. I will tell you on this show that as 2 + 2 = 4, and as the sun rises in the east, that Bitcoin's market capitalization will be greater than gold. So gold at roughly $17 trillion. That means the implied price for Bitcoin is $800,000. It's currently around $80,000. That you can take that to the bank. It's absolutely guaranteed. It's mathematically guaranteed to go to $800,000 to take out gold because it's a superior form of value and money than gold. And the history of money is always a case where those who have money flock to the hardest money, the scarcest money, the most valuable money, and that is Bitcoin.
So Max, after prophesying the game theory of Bitcoin up to this point way back in 2011, is now saying $800,000 Bitcoin and flipping the market cap of gold is as inevitable as the rising and setting of the sun. This is the profound nature of escape velocity and the global nation-state Bitcoin arms race that we are on the precipice of. The conversation then went to what I think is at the core of the Bitcoin thesis, and that's the upending of the fiat money Ponzi scheme. If you're new to the Bitcoin rabbit hole, this deep study of monetary history and the depths of corruption at the core of our current monetary system is the real mind-blowing realization of the journey.
What you're saying, and I see this, and clearly, Bitcoin is not some 15, 16-year tulip mania. It is being adopted into the very integration of the financial system as the new standard, as you said it would be. So it is too integrated, too accepted, too adopted to fail. And so we are now can say, I think on this day, Tuesday, November 12th, 2024, it's a good day to say it. This is the day that Bitcoin conquered the world. And the only question is, will there be speed humps? Can Sam Bankman-Fried's spoil any of it? Can the murder of Trump derail it for a time? Clearly, it is the new innovation. It is the new internet. It is the thing. Everything else is just a competing failure. And I think clearly at this point we can declare that Bitcoin has conquered the world. The only question is, what will that look like? When will people finally figure that out? And how do people get positioned in that so that they're part of the future? Is that an accurate statement?
Absolutely. I think it's clear to say that Bitcoin has achieved escape velocity, that it'll become the world global standard. And the total addressable market for Bitcoin is the market in financials on planet Earth, which is roughly $400 trillion. So you got to potentially move from $1.7 trillion in market cap up to 400 trillion. So do the math. It's extraordinarily high. Let's say it captures between 40 or 50% of a $400 trillion market. That's still, you're talking millions of dollars per coin. And that's the future of where Bitcoin is going, because it is perfect money. And what do I mean by perfect money? Is that it is a way for commerce to happen without any friction whatsoever and without any problems with inflation whatsoever. So that since it cannot be printed by any government or corporation, and there's a finite supply, therefore, anybody who makes Bitcoin and saves Bitcoin, they know that Bitcoin will be accepted anywhere that they go on planet Earth, which is they can travel through space. And they know that in any time in the future, they can use their Bitcoin to interact and conduct commerce as well. So you travel through time.
So you're saying Bitcoin is the singularity of currency?
It is a singularity. I call it the Bitcoin singularity. The ultimate trick is that the US will start printing money to buy Bitcoin. And of course, that will be the day that Bitcoin could jump $100,000 in a day. When the US says we're going to print, $500 billion and we're going to buy Bitcoin with it, which is what they should do and what they can do. then, it's just another chapter in this move, this inevitable, unstoppable vector that Bitcoin as perfect money is on, where all other forms of value are gobbled up by Bitcoin. Back in the 90s, when the tech industry really took off in a big way, there was a saying in Silicon Valley that software eats the world. Software ate the world. Well, now it's a new thing to think about, which is that Bitcoin is going to eat the world. Bitcoin is eating anything out there that people value or has a tradable value will be swapped for Bitcoin because it's a superior form of value. Bitcoin is not a bubble. Bitcoin is the pin. Bitcoin is the pin that's popping the bubble. The fiat money world is the bubble. The fiat money world is the Ponzi scheme. The central banks are running a massive Ponzi scheme, and they never saw Bitcoin coming. And now that it's arrived, they can't do anything about it. So I said also, I made this prediction on your show that I said this maybe 3 years ago. We're talking about the US Congress and government. And I said, Bitcoin essentially has a fifth column inside government. And now since then, Cynthia Lummis, Ted Cruz, and others have come out as Bitcoiners. So inside the government now, we've got Bitcoiners. And they're pushing this Bitcoin agenda. Because once you understand Bitcoin, there's no turning back. And you can't unsee what you've seen. And once you understand the direction and where it's going, you go with it.
So while it may seem like Bitcoin is crashing up in price, what's really happening looks more like this. Bitcoin is marching steadily up in value, while the US dollar and all other fiat currencies are crashing towards their true value of zero. So this is a lot to take in, and many of you who are new might be panicking and anxiously thinking you have completely missed the boat. I'm here to speak some sense into you and tell you to relax and take a deep breath. Yes, Bitcoin is going to the moon. Yes, it is repricing everything, but it's important to check your emotions and not get in over your skis. Do not overextend yourself. Do not take on leverage to borrow money to buy Bitcoin here. Just stay calm and maybe start a dollar cost averaging plan where you can put in a certain amount into Bitcoin every week or month. And of course, this is really important, extend your time horizon to 5 or maybe even 10 years into the future. Do this, stop looking at the chart every 2 minutes, and your future self will thank you. You can start your recurring buy plan with Swan. Visit swan.com or download the app by searching for Swan Bitcoin in your app store. Swan has the fastest and easiest onboarding experience in the industry. You go from sign up to buying Bitcoin in just a couple minutes. Plus, you get your first $10,000 in Bitcoin purchases with 0 fees. So visit swan.com to get started today. That's it for today. Let me know what you think of escape velocity in the comments below. Like this video and share it with your friends and family. And of course, subscribe to the channel for more high signal Bitcoin content. Thanks for watching, and remember, TikTok next block.